Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 497. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Zach, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
That's right. Zach wasn't here last week.
He was not here last week.
No,
Yeah.
I took a family trip to Maine, and I got back 20 minutes before the show was recording, and I hadn't watched the movie. So
What I liked last week, though, was you didn't tell us hours in advance, hey, I'm not going to make it. You texted us that 20 minutes that before you got home. You're like, oh, by the way, I just got home. Not going to make the podcast. Like you didn't realize at any other point you weren't going to make it until you got home. Was that it? Or
no, I figured it didn't matter.
Okay.
I didn't put you guys out at all. And I was thinking about other things. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old traveling across the country.
Well, I don't know if you listened to last week, Zach, but you missed a barn burner. I mean, Cry Macho, maybe Clint Eastwood's best movie, possibly.
I did listen,
Oh.
and
Okay.
to be honest, a movie that I had never heard of before you suggested we do a show on it. Your podcast episode made me vaguely interested in it. I was a little curious to see what a 91-year-old man with a love interest looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it looks unbelievable, I would say.
I will safely say that Cry Macho will make a list of mine at the end of this year.
Oh,
It'll make your A-list? Wow.
No, it'll make
He really
A-list.
loved it.
A list, yes. Yep, 5-star movie. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to see Clint Eastwood get down with some 40-year-old women.
That's absolutely not what the movie was about. But if that's what you guys took from that discussion, we've gone horribly wrong. Welcome to the podcast, guys. I'm excited about this one.
Me too.
Yeah. We were bandying about some topic ideas for this week in our private chat, which I don't think we're going to reveal yet, right? Where that private chat exists.
What are we waiting for? Episode 500?
I think so.
Yeah, 501. 501, we will reveal where the private chat is and invite others into the private chat. How does that sound?
People actually listen to 500. They might not listen to 501.
Well, we don't want them unless they're listening to 501. That's my opinion.
Ouch.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were passing around some ideas and there were some good ones. Zach came up with one that pretty much fried my brain as I read it. I was like, what? I had a million questions and this week was very busy for me, like on the work front. And I think my response was, it's a good idea, but there's not a chance I can put the brain power into that this week.
You guys asked for wacky ideas, and
Right.
that's the first thing that came to my mind.
For sure.
It was a good idea.
And then I think there were a couple of other good ideas that on a normal week would have gone somewhere. And then I threw one out. You guys don't normally take my ideas, but this one seemed to inspire a lot of silliness. And it was, hey, why don't we just talk about the top 10 movies we want to talk about? And literally, that's the only criteria. Like, you just have a feeling like you'd like to talk about this particular movie, put it on your list of top 10 movies you currently, in this very moment, want to talk about. So
Yeah.
that's the topic for this week. Before we jump into that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. You can watch this podcast while you listen to it. You could also follow the podcast on Patreon, support us there, get extra after show audio amongst other Cinerealist swag. We have already got this week's Patreon episode all planned out. It's related to Kyle and his son. Give us a tease, Kyle. How is your son involved in this Patreon episode?
Well, my son's not on the episode, but he inspired this episode. And it's mostly inspired by him constantly going through my movie collection and pulling all the movies he wishes he could watch.
Yeah, these are definitely fine.
Is that what he's saying as he's looking through your movies?
Not quite, no. He sounds a little bit more intelligent than that.
So does he go through them like they're Legos, basically? Like he's just like playing with them, or is he actually looking at them and like trying to absorb what this could be?
The latter, yeah. He like pulls it out. He'll look at the cover, look at the back, open it up, ask me what it's called. You know, ask me, are there guns in it? That's the big thing. Are there guns in it? Is it violence? Because he knows he can't watch violent movies.
Oh,
is there
okay.
blood?
It's not that he likes guns and violence. It's that he knows if they're in there, he can't see it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Or if there's a gun on the cover, he's like, this one has guns in it.
This sounds like the recipe for disaster, Kyle.
Well,
you're going to grow up with the biggest 2A proponent ever because you've sheltered him from every firearm.
Oh, I mean, he plays with guns all the time. They're just lying around his bedroom.
Oh, okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, if you guys want to hear more about all the gun movies my son is inspired by, plus some others, good. Check out the Patreon.
Right. So that's the topic, is what movies your son is interested in your collection based on the cover alone.
Yes.
Nice. Cool. Looking forward to talking about that. You can also leave us an Apple Podcast review. If you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts on your phone, just go to the show entry, scroll down to the bottom, click leave a review, leave us a star review, 5 stars only, and possibly leave a little bit of text. If you leave text, we'll talk about it on the podcast. You can also send us an email, heyguys@cinereelists.com. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, any of those kinds of things. And we'll probably talk about that on the podcast as well. With that, let's get going on the topic for this week. Really excited about this one. The top 10 movies we want to talk about. Now, normally, this is where we would probably give an overlong explanation of how we used some weird criteria to come up with a movie. I personally don't think we should do that on this one because my criteria constantly shifted based on what movie I picked. Was that generally the experience you guys had?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
There's no rhyme or reason to mine. I haven't even seen all the movies on my list.
That's great.
There's one on my list too that I also have not seen. So I'm curious to know what you guys came up with, and I no longer have to be curious because we're gonna jump into it right now. Zach, why don't you go first?
I would love to go first, James. Okay, my first movie that I want to talk about is You've Got Mail.
Okay. This almost made my list. It was literally in my notes and it got pushed out. So I'm glad that it made your list.
James, how do you not have the You've Got Mail sound effect for this exact moment?
I really need to load it up. I agree.
I watched You've Got Mail in the theater when it came out.
Okay.
I don't know how old I was, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking out being so annoyed with the movie. I was so annoyed with You've Got Mail. I found the movie annoying. That was my one takeaway, was I found it very annoying. And come to find out that most people kind of like that movie a lot. It's kind of like a beloved film to some people.
Sure.
And I never got it because I found that movie annoying.
Wait, you never got it, or you just didn't get it at that age on that viewing?
Well, that was my only viewing, and I never got it.
Okay.
And I liked Sleepless in Seattle, so I was like, I don't know what the problem is here.
They're kind of the same movie.
Very similar, right?
Yeah.
People that just chat, but yeah.
No, it's it's the same two actors who just chat too.
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
And You've Got Mail, they do interact in person as well. They just don't know they're the same people that they're chatting with. So anyways, on the plane to Maine.
On the plane to Maine?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a limerick?
Yeah, on the plane to Maine. They had You've Got Mail on the plane entertainment. So I watched it. half on the way up to Maine and half on the way back.
As it
Okay.
really should be experienced.
And I will say, I didn't find it annoying this time. It's not the best movie ever made.
Sure.
There's some parts of it that are cheesy and cringy and like, schlocky, I would say. But I found the movie perfectly fine. And I enjoyed watching it. And I have no major issues with it. And it turns out there's some, people in it that I totally didn't realize at the time.
Who's in it that
Yeah,
you
like
didn't
who?
realize?
Well, James, you said this was almost on your list. Do you know who's in it?
No. I mean, I didn't research it because it didn't make the list, so I don't remember. It's been
okay.
a long time since I've seen You've Got Mail.
Sure. Dave Chappelle is in it.
Really? Like,
Yeah.
does he have one line or is he an actual character?
He's a character.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Don't remember
So-
that at all.
Is that all? Dave Chappelle? Was he the one?
No, there's other people.
What more do you need, Kyle?
Well, I mean, Zach was like, I was expecting him to be like, did you know that Jack Black's in this? Did you know that? Like, I was.
Oh, Jack
waiting for a
Black's cooler than Dave Chappelle?
No,
Okay.
I was waiting for a laundry list of who's who of unknowns in 1998, wherever this came out, and I was given Dave Chappelle.
Okay, what about Steve Zahn?
He was not an unknown back then.
No.
I mean,
Greg Kinnear.
look,
Yeah,
Jack Black, Greg Kinnear, Steve Zahn, these are people you'd expect to be in You've Got Mail as supporting characters. I would argue that Dave Chappelle
You
is
didn't expect
easily
it.
the most surprising person Zach
Yeah.
has mentioned. Anybody's mentioned that's in You've Got Mail, I would say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can we give him that, Kyle?
I'll give you that.
Okay.
So I take this as a win for the fact that I can overcome an old movie bias, watch it with fresh eyes, and come away not being annoyed by it.
So bottom line, this romantic comedy, perfectly harmless romantic comedy
Yeah.
that you were previously annoyed by, that people
Yeah.
love, that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
You rewatched it in 2 parts on an airplane.
Yeah.
How much time between part 1 and part 2?
6 days.
6 days apart
Yeah.
from part 1
Yeah.
to part 2.
Yeah.
It bookended your trip on
Yeah.
a plane to Maine. And your report is you're no longer annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And
Just-
I just really wanted to talk about that.
That's a real journey you went on, Zach. From I don't like this movie too. It's all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
It just took 2 sittings in 6 days.
What do you remember about Sleepless in Seattle?
A lot more. I liked Sleepless in Seattle a lot more. I know that movie pretty well.
Interesting. So Sleepless in Seattle, multiple rewatches.
Yes.
You've Got Mail, 1 rewatch,
Well,
30
I
years
never-
later.
I never revisited it because I was like, why would I watch this annoying movie again?
See, I find Sleepless in Seattle, which I've seen far less than You've Got Mail, to be boring. It's like the worst
Sure.
version of You Got Mail in my mind. But
Yeah,
that's just
sure.
me.
I just thought it was sweeter. Whereas like in You've Got Mail, they're more mean to each other.
Right, because they are rivals who are unknowingly talking to each other through the internet.
Ooh, that is
Right.
the plot of the film. Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't it wild?
Zach-
There was a time in our lives where there was one sound effect that represented email.
Because there was one email.
That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Zach, I also saw You've Got Mail on an airplane.
Really?
Yeah. 20 years ago.
Okay. Well, that's
Or-
great.
Yeah. And it was fine.
My like most memorable watch on an airplane was The Truth About Cats and Dogs. That is the movie that I think of the first whenever I think of a movie I watched on an airplane.
With a Kill Bill actress, I forget her name. Wasn't she in
Uma?
that? Was Uma Thurman in that? Uma Thurman and
Janine Garofalo,
Right.
Uma Thurman, and Jamie Foxx.
okay, so I did have Uma Thurman, right?
Yeah.
And Jamie Foxx was in that?
Oh yeah.
Wow. I've seen that, but I don't remember that. But
My standout movie airplane memory is seeing Nothing But Trouble, the Nick Nolte movie, on an airplane.
Okay.
And this was on a flight from...
I saw that in the theater.
Yeah. This is on a flight from Denver to Boston. And this is like back when, if you had a 3-hour flight, they play a movie and feed you a meal. Much different times. And you had to pay for the headphones. And my parents are like, no, you're not watching Nothing But Trouble. We're not paying for the headphones. And then the flight attendant gave my brother and I the headphones anyway.
I think you're talking about I Love Trouble from 1994.
Oh, is it I Love Trouble, not Nothing But Trouble?
Yeah.
Oh, what's the difference?
Well, Nothing But Trouble is a Dan Aykroyd comedy,
yeah.
really dark comedy.
Yeah, super dark.
Yeah.
Nothing But Trouble. No, sorry. I Love Trouble is Nick Nolte, and someone else. It's like a famous re-team up, right?
No,
Who's the woman in it?
It's a woman. I can't remember her name.
So I pulled up I Love Trouble from 1994, starring Nick Nolte on Google, right? You know how
And Julie Roberts.
You know how Google will give you like what you searched and then like a little bit from a website, like in the search results, so you don't have to click it, like a little summary of, maybe the most important information on there. So for the Wikipedia entry for I Love Trouble from 1994, this is the 2 sentences it gives you as the preview for this movie. According to Nolte, it is the worst film in which he has ever appeared. He felt he sold his soul by doing it, and he did it only for the money. That's their preview for the movie I Love Trouble on Google.
Well, I have no memory of the actual movie. It's just the experience of watching it on the airplane and having the flight attendant completely undercut my parents in front of them.
Nice.
That's great.
All right, Kyle, what's your number 10?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I kind of was going through movies that I like, and it's not every case, but movies that I like that I think have never come up on this podcast before. Okay. And I just wanted to bring them up and see if you guys had seen them too and get a little discussion going, or if not, make some recommendations. So my number 10 is a 1958 movie directed by Orson Welles. This is called Touch of Evil. Have either of you heard of this?
Oh, yeah.
It has come up because Zach's seen it and I have not.
Okay, all right. Well, I have no memory of it coming up, so we're going to bring it back up again.
All right.
That first shot, man.
There you go. Would you like to talk about it, Zach?
No, I'm just...
I was joking.
What about the first shot? I know nothing about the first shot.
It would be on my list.
Oh, is that how this is going to work?
Yeah,
we don't talk to each other about the movies we bring up because only we want to talk about it?
James, please tell Zach that in the first shot. So this movie starring Charlton Heston. He is playing a Mexican border agent named Miguel Vargas, which is already problematic, but you can forget about that part. And he is investigating a bombing and some crime that's happening between the Mexico-U.S. border. And he's working with a guy named Hank Quinlan, played by Orson Welles, who plays his American counterpart. But Orson Welles is both like his counterpart and possible suspect. So there's a bit of a noir theme going on to this. And as Zach mentioned, the first shot of this movie, you see someone plant a bomb in the trunk of a car on the Mexico side of the border. And then it's like a 5-minute tracking shot, Zach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a one-shot tracking shot for 5 minutes.
Of just following...
With cranes and all sorts of stuff.
Yep. Just following this car as it like drives up the street, stops in front of a club, people get in, people get out. It might be a taxi cab for all I know, and drives across the border. And you're just waiting for this bomb to explode. You have no idea when it's going to. It's a great opening shot. And it's a great crime noir movie.
And just to emphasize the point, this is a movie from the 50s in black and white with a 5-minute oneer that's really intricate and impressively done.
And it's a great performance. Like the Orson Welles performance stands out more to me. Charlton Heston, he's fine as an actor. I think he's very broad overall in anything he does. But Orson Welles really plays this slimy police captain. It's the best way to put it.
And he directed it too. And
he did.
He's arguably a better director than actor.
Yeah. I mean, he's most famous for directing, I believe.
I guess. I mean,
Or radio,
directing what?
one of the two.
Like Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
where
that
he
one.
Stars in and direct. I mean, who knows?
James, Janet Leigh is also in this movie.
Okay, from Psycho.
And Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Yes.
All right.
Oh yeah, there. Look at that, Zsa Zsa Gabor. Look at that. So James, I think you need to check this movie out.
You think I need to?
I think it's worth your time.
At least watch the first 5 minutes.
Well, if I'm going to watch the first 5 minutes, I'm going to watch the whole thing. I don't just willy-nilly watch 5 minutes of movies.
Well, it's the first 5, and if you're enjoying it, you can keep watching. If you're not,
No,
just treat it as like a YouTube video.
that's not how it works with me. You should know this by now, Zach. I don't start movies, and then when I stop digging them, I stop. I have to finish it once I start it. That's how it works.
It's
At least with me.
just under 2 hours, so it's not a huge time commitment.
And it doesn't feel like a stage play, is what you're telling me.
No, I mean, it's Orson Welles. Like, do you think Citizen Kane feels like a stage play?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then.
Yeah, James, I'm not sure you will enjoy this movie, but you will enjoy the first 5 minutes.
Okay. Sounds good. I think it's already on my watch list, but I will bump it up the list. All right, my number 10. This one should be shorter than yours. Both yours was. This is from 2014. Birdman. Why are we not still talking about Birdman? Right? This is a movie I want to talk about.
Talk about it.
Like it came out. I loved it. Everybody loved it. It won like 4 Academy Awards, the best Academy Awards, including the best Academy Award, Best Picture. And I feel like nobody gives it any respect. It never comes up in like polite conversation. How awesome Birdman is. Now, Kyle was shaking his head when I first said Birdman. What's up with that?
I don't know. I think it was overhyped.
Really?
I was not-
Green Book was overhyped.
I've never seen Green Book, so that's not a good point of reference.
Have you heard of Green Book and experienced hype around it?
I've heard of it. I'm aware it won an Oscar or two.
Birdman's great. I owned it on Blu-ray.
So your biggest problem with Birdman, Kyle, is not the actual content of Birdman. It's that people made you think it was better than you actually think it is.
Well, yeah. So it was one of these movies where people were seeing it, present company included,
right?
And we're like, "Have you seen Birdman yet?" Like it seemed like appointment viewing. Like, stop what you're doing, go see Birdman.
It was, still is.
Yeah.
So I eventually saw it. And
so you were prescribed antibiotics and told to take the full course, and then you didn't follow directions, and you eventually saw it.
I eventually
we said, stop
saw
what
it.
you're doing. We said stop what you're doing.
Well, I have my own agency. I can make my own decisions.
Did you
I'm
see
a
it
big
at
boy
home?
now. I don't think I saw it in the theater. I think it was we saw it on rental.
Big mistake.
Rental.
Yeah.
There's probably scratches on that.
No, it's digital
Did it
media. It did not skip. Yeah, we got some blue screens. I flashed in and out for a while. I had to blow on
there's
the
your problem.
VCR. So, I don't know. I found the fake oneer mostly annoying. Like it didn't seem necessary for it to. I understand. Obviously, it took place over time. Like they had moments where the camera would zoom somewhere and obviously a day or two had passed. So it wasn't like rope where they're trying to make you think it actually took place in real time. But I also didn't see the necessity of having it even pretend to be one long take. It didn't seem like it helped the story whatsoever. And I just found it more annoying. And maybe this is a me thing, but when I see a fake oneer, I'm looking for the seams. Like this is why 1917 didn't work for me. Because I spend more time like looking for the cracks than I am enjoying what's actually in front of me. So you got to give me a real oneer or one that's done so well that I can't see any seams to it.
So when the movie doesn't even bother to hide the seams, much like Birdman, it still bothers you? Because Birdman is very clear when it moves from one to the other. They're not trying to fake you out.
Well, yeah, because it's something. Okay, so do you know what does the same thing as scenes that are like movies that aren't trying to hide it? Like the biggest thing they'll do, and even Rope does this. They'll either have like someone walk by the camera, so it goes black for a second, or they'll like zoom into a shirt and then zoom out of it, right? And the TV show Blind Date did the exact same thing when they were showing the dates between couples, the reality show, where they would have like the couple on screen talking, and then they wanted to cut like to the next point in the conversation, but they want to put a cut. So they had like a silhouette of a waiter walk by, and that was their seamless transition. And it always bothered me. So if someone does it the same thing, I just think of like cheap reality TV was pulling the same trick.
You thought of that when watching Birdman
and Rope,
when those both came out before your cheap reality TV, because that reality TV hasn't been doing that for years, has it?
No. Blind Date came out in the 2000s, so definitely pre-Birdman. Obviously, did not come out before Rope.
Maybe I'm not familiar with your particular dating reality show.
I just can't believe Kyle has to be the only person on the planet who was hate watching Birdman because of the hype and was like, this is exactly like Blind Date. Exactly like Blind Date.
I also didn't care for the ending where he floats off in the sky.
Hey. Not everybody's seen it.
Wait, okay. We should talk beforehand. Is this a spoiler episode or not?
Not for Birdman.
Not for Bird. That movie came out 6 years ago.
Exactly. If you haven't, it's been so hyped. You haven't seen it by now.
No.
No one talks about it.
Dance around it.
Why.
Dance around
What do you
it.
mean hyped?
Right.
No one is hyping it up.
Yeah, that's
exactly,
the whole point of bringing this up. Nobody's hyping this movie. We need to hype it.
It's going to be on your Forgotten Films of 2014 list.
We're not doing that list.
Well, I mean, like in 10 years. When we
I'm not doing any list in the same year in which we recorded this podcast, as far as forgotten movies goes.
All right.
Forgotten episodes of Cinereelists.
That would be great. Top 10 movies I think we've talked about.
All right.
Nice.
So your criticism of Birdman consists of, I just want to summarize.
Please.
Overhyped.
Yep.
And you don't like oneers unless they can trick you into thinking it wasn't really a oneer.
Or it's a real oneer.
But not nobody, but very rarely can somebody film an entire movie in a legit oneer, right? Victoria and maybe that Russian movie. Are those the only two we can think of where they've legitimately done a full runtime of one oneer?
Victoria annoyed the crap out of me.
Really? Because that's an actual oneer.
I know, but like Victoria also makes the case for why editing exists in movies.
No, Victoria was awesome. I loved Victoria.
Like as a technical achievement, I give them props to pulling off a oneer.
It's a great story too.
Story-wise, well, okay, maybe the story's good, but
acting.
Since they literally spend like every minute going from point A to point B to point C, you realize like when people say, well, how do they get there? I realize, I don't care. I don't need to know how someone gets from point A to point B because Victoria showed that to me and it's incredibly boring.
No. You're thinking of Jerry. It's not like she like spent 10 minutes walking somewhere and nothing happened. Like it was constantly action happening.
I wouldn't say constant's the right word.
What would you say?
Frequent?
Frequent.
Ubiquitous?
No, I don't know. It just there was too much walking and travel in that movie.
That's awesome. That's right. You hate cinematic wonders. That's fine.
Yeah. It's like Workmeister Harmonies where there's walking for 10 minutes. Like, why? Don't show me how you get there. Trust that I know how you got there.
I mean, I love Birdman and I can think of like 4 other things I could see somebody hating about it. Those are like the 2 weirdest things I can think of. Maybe not weird, but shallow things I could think of.
Shallow?
I too noticed a lot of the stitches between, the oneer shots.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I gave that movie a 5 out of 5 because there's so much to love about it.
You obviously just don't appreciate good craftsmanship.
Clearly.
Obviously. Zach and the other voting members of the Academy don't appreciate good craftsmanship.
We all know everyone buys their Oscars anyway. Look at Green Book.
Do you think they bought it?
Birdman is the safest pick they could have made that year.
Oh yeah.
Who did you want to win?
I don't even who was even up for the I don't even remember who was up for Oscar that year.
That's a good question.
It's 2015 is when it won.
2015 Oscar.
Yeah.
All right. I can find this fairly rapidly. Here we go. Wait, this doesn't make any sense.
Okay, American Sniper, Boyhood, Grand Budapest Hotel, Imitation Game, Selma, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash.
Oh, Whiplash. There you go. Like, come on. That's right. This was Whiplash and what's the Foxcatcher?
Yeah.
That's the other one. Yeah.
I mean, I would have been perfectly happy with Whiplash winning, but
yeah,
I am. If Whiplash wasn't going to win, I'm perfectly happy with Birdman winning as well. I would have taken either of those. In fact, I applaud the Academy for their pick for the best movie of 2014 because I think Birdman is a riskier choice in the long run.
Riskier than Whiplash?
Yeah, I think Whiplash is a
for sure
very well made, standardly presented movie. Whereas Birdman takes some risks in the storytelling.
Yeah, I'll give you presentation-wise, Whiplash is the riskier movie. But I don't think that... Sorry, Birdman's the riskier movie. I don't think that Whiplash is a safe movie by any stretch of the imagination.
What makes it unsafe? The language?
Well, it's a movie about jazz, for one thing.
Okay.
It's a movie about
It's not really about jazz. I mean, it's about a jazz teacher and a jazz student.
Okay, so it's about jazz.
It's not about jazz.
It's about dedication and what it takes to be great.
Sure.
With a very unconventional and even 7 years later, probably now quote unquote problematic teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't even know if Whiplash could be made now compared to 2014, and that's not a lot of time that's passed.
Oh, you don't think it could be made now?
I think if Whiplash was made now, it would be viewed much differently than it was 7 years ago.
Why?
I think people view Whiplash and they see, at least when it came out, they see the J.K. Simmons character and being like, he's tough, but he's trying to get the best out of Miles Teller. And I think that was the overall read of the character then. And I think the overall read of the character now would be like, oh, he's a bully who's, hurting someone's mental health to get results to make him feel
typical,
better.
Like cool guy band teacher. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like in 2014, I could throw chairs at students day in, day out. No one batted an eye. Now, I mean, I don't teach anymore. So
I disagree. I think this could come out today and it would still be as accepted as the original Whiplash was. I mean, the original Whiplash is not exactly a super well-known movie amongst people who aren't hardcore into movies. It's not like it was a huge box office success or anything like that. And I think it complicates the characters enough that there's no hero or villain in that movie. Like even the kid has his issues. He's not 100% pure of intention. And obviously the teacher isn't either. The teacher has a lot of problematic methods. But I think it presents people as complicated. And I think that's still acceptable in 2021 to discerning audiences. I think bad actors who are probably loud in the media will take something like that and maybe misconstrue it. But I think the general public could still watch Whiplash today for the first time and be like, oh, I'm mature enough to understand that people are complicated and that the teacher is abusive, but he's not murdering somebody. You know what I mean? There's levels, I would say. I don't know. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I do disagree with Kyle on that, but my disagreement is uninteresting.
All right. Perfect.
Okay. My number 9, I want to talk about the new Matrix sequel, The Matrix 4. Now, James.
This is 2 for 2. This is another one that was on my list.
Really? Okay.
And then it fell off.
It's fantastic.
We're in sync.
We are in sync. The new Matrix sequel, a trailer came out. I feel like the trailer shows a lot, although it's probably just from the first half an hour, and then there's much, much more that we're going to be exposed to. I will say I was disappointed with what I saw in the trailer, and it brought my enthusiasm for the film a lot lower. And I don't think that's the common reaction.
I was going to say the reaction I saw on Twitter was the exact opposite. I saw lots of people who were like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually interested in a Matrix movie again.
Exactly. A lot of people are jazzed. But I was not. I don't know. I found, if you don't want me to mention any element of the sequel, I'm comfortable with that. But if you want me to get into specifics, I can do that as well. But the trailer to me seemed like it latched onto some elements from the first film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, we're going to bring these back and have more of it. And to me, it felt like, oh, that's not really the interesting thing about it. Like we now have more of those things, but like it misses what made it cool in the first movie. Now it's just like now there's just more of it, but like not in the cool way.
Kyle.
It seemed like it seemed like someone who, obviously they're making their sequel to their own film, but it just seems like they forgot what made the Matrix cool, and instead are just repeating nouns and adjectives and verbs from the Matrix.
I think.
Did you see the trailer, Kyle?
I did not watch the trailer.
Neither did I. So this is going to be a tough discussion to have.
But I can try and weigh, based on what Zach said, I can try and weigh in. Now, there's only one Wachowski sibling involved, correct? Mm-hmm. It's not the two of them. Okay.
I think it's Lana, maybe.
Lana. Okay. I think that she is in kind of between a rock and a hard place based on the original trilogy, where Matrix, I think for all three of us, 5-star movie. It's a beloved, groundbreaking, blah, 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 superlative movie. And
it's no Birdman, but yeah, it's good.
I mean,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
They have the exact same ending. Let's just say that. And then with the sequels, they could have just like done the standard sequel. Let's just do the Matrix again, but bigger. And instead, they decided to move the story forward and build the world out, right? And some of that was successful and some of that was not a success. And I think overall, I'm not sure the opinion of this group, but overall, the sequels were not received as well as the original movie. So now they're at a point where they're doing the remake 20 years later, or she is. And if she just does like the Matrix bigger, then people can be like, oh, well, this is just like, there's nothing new here. I'm not sure, like, why they have to make this movie? It just seems like a cash in. And if she does the, like, continues the Reloaded Revolution storyline, people will be like, well, I didn't like this storyline anyway. Like, why can't they give me the stuff that's cool? So I don't know if there's a way that people can be happy with Matrix 4. Or if there is this very very narrow needle she needs to thread to try and make it original with it while still being part of the coolness of the original.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the trailer, so take that for what it is. I don't know what's in there, what's not in there, right? That I would even want to see from it. But let's be honest. I mean, the Matrix should have ended at 1, right? Like 2 and 3 are fine, but they're more of what 1 had in not a great way. And so to expect that from 4, to expect 4 to not be more of the same when literally it's the same ingredients for the most part. I just don't expect that from that. I don't expect the Matrix 4 to be good. I expect it to be as good, maybe a little less good than Revolutions, and for it to give me a little bit of a nostalgia kick. And that's all I expect from it. If it ends up being more than that, bonus.
I guess what I was hoping for was they had a lot of time to reflect,
mm-hmm.
and then They didn't do anything until they realized, okay, we have this perfect idea that's going to just redeem things and tie everything up in a way that's great.
Mhm.
And that's what I was hoping for, because I know the amount of genius and creativity that mustered, the franchise in the first place.
Mhm.
So I knew that's possible. There's something there. But what I saw in the trailer was not that, in my opinion. Now, granted, I'm positive there's a ton we are not seeing in that trailer.
Mhm.
And so maybe they're holding all of their best cards, and great. I'm going to watch the movie no matter what. Hopefully it'll blow me away, but I will say the trailer lowered my expectations quite a bit.
As
And
long
that
as
doesn't seem to be the popular opinion, which surprised me.
as long as it's a visual feast and isn't boring, I don't really care. That's what I'm
Yeah,
looking
the CGI looked poor too, in my opinion.
It may not be done. I mean, it's not supposed to be coming out till December.
Yeah.
So the Reloaded, as much as the story had issues, I think still was the visual feast that Matrix gave me. Maybe not as great, but still there. Revolutions, though, it's so drab and gray and
Yeah, but
you realize
Revolutions to me is more of the visual feast, because Reloaded was just like, okay, we have what's the camera movement called that they invented?
Oh, bullet time?
Yeah, we have more bullet time in real world environments, whereas with Revolutions, like that scene where they're invading Zion, where the robots are invading Zion. I mean, that at the time, I understand the setup for it was botched and like the stakes were not planted well enough for that action scene to really matter. But if you look at the tech behind that action scene in 2003, I think maybe 4, it still stands up. It's pretty awesome from a visual perspective, even if you don't buy into the motivation behind the visuals. But I still think The Matrix exists best as there's this movie called The Matrix, and then there's these other movies that came after it. Because The Matrix, I think, works best as a standalone. But I don't mind the other ones. I'm fine with it.
Kyle, you're number 9.
This is going to be a long
realizing
podcast.
this is going to be a long episode.
This is going to be a long episode, yes. All right, my number 9 is actually a movie that I asked my wife to fill this spot in. I said, "What movie did we not talk about on the podcast that we should bring up?"
So this is a movie you don't want to talk about, but your wife wants to talk about?
No, I want to talk about this too.
Okay.
So
by happenstance.
we talked about a couple. There's a couple back and forth, and we landed on this one.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is a favorite of both of ours, and this is the 5-Year Engagement from 2012. This is
hated it.
perennial favorite in the Peterson household. We probably watch this once a year.
So bad.
Perennial.
What's so bad?
8 years
perennial.
ago.
Yeah, and we watch it yearly
All right.
for the last 8
And,
years.
and
So
plan
it's an
on
annual.
for the rest of your life.
It's not a perennial, it's an annual.
Wait, did I say perennial?
Yeah.
Yes. Wait. Yeah. So it pops up the one time, and then we never talk about it again. You're right. It's an annual. My apologies. An annual movie we watch in the Peterson household.
Okay.
This is directed by Nicholas Stoller, who also did Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And I like this movie a lot. I think this is a great balance of rom-com that's actually funny and actually has some like romantic stakes to it. Even though it hits all the tropes, it still works. And for me, this movie works because of the cast. Because you've got Jason Segel and Emily Blunt as the two leads. And Emily Blunt is incredibly charming. We all know this, right? There's no mystery to that. Jason Segel, hilarious. I think he's one of the funniest guys, I think, in comedy or in movies. He's not been in a lot of movies recently, but like definitely in the Judd Apatow 2000s, early 2010s, he was in a ton of that stuff, and he's great in it. You also have, though, an awesome supporting cast. You've got Alison Brie as the sister to Emily Blunt, and then Chris Pratt as the best friend to Jason Segel. And it all works for me. There's this moment where it's sort of like right before the emotional crux of the film, where Emily Blunt and Alison Brie are having a discussion about like Emily Blunt's love life and whether she should be with Jason Segel or not. And they're having this discussion in front of Alison Brie's 5-year-old daughter. And they're talking, and then the daughter's like, says to her mom, talk like Cookie Monster, and then says to her aunt, Emily Blunt, talk like Elmo. So they're having this incredibly, big conversation as Sesame Street characters. And it's so funny.
Have you guys incorporated that into your communication styles?
I mean, we don't do entire conversations in Cookie Monster, Elmo, but like sometimes we'll do the whole Elmo, like Elmo thinks, that little take on it. Yeah. The standout thing to me about that movie is I was very disturbed by the adultery in it. Oh, there's not a ton of adultery. Like there's
no, but there was a
not a
scene in
ton
like,
of it,
I
Zach.
think in like a bakery shop or something like that.
Yeah.
I found that element of the movie, the way it was handled or presented or whatever, to be very disturbing to me. That was my takeaway from the film.
But disturbing because it's happening, or disturbing because it's happening on deli meat?
No, not that. It seemed to be. I don't remember the specifics of why it bothered me so much. It seemed to be not judged by the movie, I guess. Like it was presented in a way that was just kind of matter of fact about it, and rather than like, well, this is an awful thing that's happening. I don't know. That was my experience with it.
They break up after that. That's what caused them to finally break up. It is judged.
Yeah,
There's
spoiler
consequences.
alert. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, spoilers, man.
Well, it's a rom-com. I already told you it hits all the tropes. Like you know the arc of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Anyway,
arc.
I was disturbed by it.
You were disturbed by the fact that there is an adultery scene and then he faces the consequences of that scene.
In the same way as Lost in Translation, I was disturbed by the adultery in that.
Okay.
I will say that this is, I've certainly heard of this movie, The 5-Year Engagement, but I've never seen it, and probably would never have seen it until you brought it up right now. I'm sold. Jason Segel. I mean, this cast is awesome. Jason Segel, Emily Blunt, Chris Pratt,
Dakota Johnson's in it.
Allison Brie,
Brian Posehn.
I am ready to be disturbed by it, just like Zach. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
Mean, it's like when you talk about disturbing films, you're talking Pink Flamingos, you're talking Funny Games, and 5-Year Engagement in the same breath.
Sure.
Yeah.
Only slightly worse than Kids, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think I found this movie troubling.
Great.
Anyway, James.
My
What's
number
yours,
9,
James?
and
Number
this
9.
one could be fast. Men at Work. Who's seen Men at Work?
That almost made my list, James.
Did it really?
Not familiar with this movie whatsoever.
That's hilarious.
You're not. 1990, Men at Work came out. It's an action comedy thriller directed by Emilio Estevez, starring Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez as garbage men. You know, the guys that pick up your garbage. And they find
sanitation workers, thank you.
Sure, sanitation workers, whatever. They literally call themselves garbage men, so I think it's okay. I mean, it was 31 years ago, but anyway. So they happen across a dead body in a garbage can that they're picking up, and they realize that they have some kind of odd connection to this dead body, and so for that reason, they cannot go to the police about this dead body, and then they try to solve the crime, solve the riddle as to why this dead body exists. And the other day I was just working and I had YouTube up and just whatever came, right? I just like to let the algorithm do its job, right? I just Chromecast to the TV, whatever. I think I played The Greatest Train Robbery first, a Sean Connery movie that I'm sure I'll talk about someday. And whatever movie came up next, I was going to watch. Well, half watch because I was working. And Men at Work came up, and it's a movie I've seen. And I was like, oh, yeah, I like this movie. And then I saw it, and I was like, this is exactly what came out in 1990. I mean, exactly what 1990 represents to me as far as movies I have a soft spot for that are not good movies at all. I mean, there was like probably 2 scenes in here that I actually have a decent memory of. And both of them are not politically correct jokes that I'm sure I found hilarious at the age of 14 when this came out. Yeah. I mean, this could have easily made like a forgotten films list, but it's not good enough, right? It's not a top 10 forgotten film. It's a forgotten film for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's not good.
Yeah. Nice.
So I don't know when else this would come up, but I feel like we need to talk about it right now. And we did.
Yeah, we did.
I pulled this up on Letterboxd, and the first review that popped up said, "This was funnier when I was younger."
Exactly. For sure.
That's great. Okay. My number 8 is The Sound of Music. And my wife and I watched the first like 15 minutes of this in Maine. While we were playing pool, and they had it at the cabin. So they had a DVD. It was like a special edition DVD of The Sound of Music. So we're like, oh, we both like The Sound of Music. Let's pop it in. We put it in, and I have a couple things to say about this film. First of all, it was a DVD, but we were kind of far away from the TV, and it looked like super dazzlingly sharp. And I think a DVD becomes a Blu-ray when you're far away because it was so crisp. It was amazing.
There's nothing quite like the crystal clear picture quality of Blu-ray.
So perfect, James. So perfect. So I'll say that. Second of all, have you guys heard of the Mandela effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening have not heard the Mandela effect, it's this theory that there's been slight changes made in our reality. And we are given like a kind of a deja vu, a collective societal deja vu of what it used to be. But then things have since changed. So for instance, like the Berenstain Bears, when you actually look at a Berenstain Bears book, it's spelled Berenstain. They're the Berenstain Bears. They've never been the Berenstain Bears. And so it's this idea that we all know that it was the Berenstain Bears, but it's been changed and no one will admit it, kind of a thing. So that's the Mandela effect.
I mean, the simpler explanation is this: we all forgot as a group.
Well, yeah, obviously it's wacky and ridiculous, right?
Yeah, but it's a fun theory.
But if anything is going to make me believe in the Mandela effect, it is rewatching the first 15 minutes of The Sound of Music. Because my wife and I were both watching it, and we're like, we've seen this movie a lot. And as we're watching it, it just seemed like there were so many new shots that we did not remember from the opening sequence. There was like a lot that we had completely forgotten about. That was included in this first opening sequence. I mean, you definitely remember The Hills Are Alive, right? Her spinning around in the field. I totally forgotten about the like long Shining-esque helicopter shot leading up to it. I forgot about through the forest and through the city. Like they show the city. I don't know. I didn't remember that. Then like while she's singing and dancing in the field, the open field in the like Austrian Alps or something. She then like goes to like a little lake with like geese and like chases them and then goes back to the field and spins some more. I don't know, just all these little things that we had just not remembered at all. So it was like rewatching the movie for the first time, and I wanted to talk about it.
Can I tell a very quick, I know it's going to be a long episode, very quick story about this movie?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I want you to talk about it too.
So I was student teaching, and the class I was student teaching with was studying this movie or a song from this or something like that. So I planned a whole lesson about how we're like going to watch parts of the movie and talk about it. And this is going to be the lesson that was going to be observed on by my professor. And I popped the movie into the VCR at the school I'm student teaching it, hit play, and then the VCR immediately like eats the tape and like throws the tape out and like gets all jammed. It won't play. And me being a novice teacher, instead of being like, oh, just move on, I was like, I'm going to fix this. And there is nothing more awkward, because I taped the whole thing, because you're supposed to tape yourself, teach to watch it. There's nothing more awkward than watching me fumble with a VCR for 3 minutes in complete silence in front of a group of 6th graders as my teacher's just making notes the whole time. And it was cringe to watch that tape of me being a terrible teacher in the moment.
That's awesome. I'm going to need a copy of that tape.
Yeah, me too.
It's long gone.
You destroyed that tape as well?
Yeah, it was the same VCR, Zach. I didn't learn my lesson.
I need to rewatch The Sound of Music because I don't think I've seen it all the way through. Like as probably as an adult I have, but it's probably been 20 plus years. And that's a movie that was just constantly on when I was a kid because I have 3 sisters and they all like that movie. And so we had VHSs of it, both taped off TV and later actual VHSs. And it just was like as much as I put in Star Wars, they put in Sound of Music. And so there are specific things that are in my brain that represent that movie for me. And I imagine there are lots of other things that I just completely ignored because it wasn't relevant to me at the time or the age that I was at when I was ingesting it. So I imagine it would play differently now than it did, 20 plus years ago.
I have 2 other things to say about The Sound of Music.
Mm-hmm.
One, my wife is from Vermont, and the Von Trapp family settled in Vermont. So I think Vermonters feel a kinship with the Von Trapps. And then the other thing is in the post-apocalyptic world of The Postman, the rough and tumble Aryan racist gang, they all watch The Sound of Music at night on the big screen.
And cheer for the Nazis.
Yeah, and get emotional.
It's the movie. You're right. It's the it's the movie that white supremacists like. Is that what Postman is putting forward?
No, it's probably the only movie they had. And these gang members needed some sort of emotional catharsis.
Sure.
And it showed the complexity of
Yeah, because we haven't made that many movies about Nazis. Not a popular movie topic.
Right.
So
James probably doesn't even know it's about Nazis.
I don't even remember that. The only movie I saw with Nazis that I remember from my childhood is Indiana Jones or Raiders of the Lost Ark. Lost Ark.
Lost Ark.
The Last Ark.
Raiders of the Last Ark.
It was the last arc.
Yeah, there hasn't been an arc since then.
Not since that movie.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Kyle?
I have no opinion on arcs.
Oh, I just wanted to know what your next movie was.
Oh, okay.
We didn't need a dissertation on arcs.
My number 8 is a movie that is a top 100 movie for me. I don't know if it's come off this podcast or not, so I'm bringing it up. And this is In the Mood for Love, directed by Wong Kar-wai. I imagine both of you have seen this.
I don't think it's ever come up, and I don't think I've seen it.
All right. So this is starring Tony Leung of the previous Shang-Chi movie, and Maggie, I'm guess Cheung because it's spelled like Leung with the CH. And they're really the main 2 characters in this movie. It takes place in Hong Kong in the 60s, and both the 2 main characters are married to different people. But you never see their spouses in this movie. I think her husband travels a lot and his wife, I don't even remember why she's on the picture. So they're both in sort of loveless, bad marriages, and they both live in the same apartment building and start kind of like talking to each other incidentally and then hanging out more and more and starting to slowly form this relationship. But it's not like a torrid affair. It's this really simmering, deep relationship that they form throughout the course of this movie. So as a romance movie, it's great because it really kind of delves into like what forms a bond between 2 people. But then as just a piece of cinema, it is beautiful to look at. The cinematography is amazing in this movie. Like some of the places where they shoot the movie, they do a lot of tricks where they'll have the 2 characters in the same room, but there'll be something always in between them. Could be a piece of furniture, could be like them shooting through a piece of art. So you see like this constant division between the two main characters, even though they're in the same room. And it's a movie where I knew nothing about it going into it. It was a list movie, and I was taken away by both the story and the visual aspect of it. It's even though it's a romance movie, it'll suck you in.
Yeah, it's great.
I have not seen it. Will I enjoy it?
So I enjoyed this much more than Chungking Express. And I'm sure they're similar. So I'm sure if you like Chungking Express, you will like In the Mood for Love.
What if you liked half of Chungking Express?
Which half did you like?
The first half?
So I like the first half better than the second half.
Okay.
So I think you and I are very similar on this.
Right. Opposites on Birdman. Similar on this.
Correct.
Okay.
Similar on Wong Kar-wai in general.
All right. Well, luckily, I already had it watch list on Letterboxd, so evidently somebody's already sold me on it, and I've ignored it.
Perfect.
And it's also not on any streaming services that I subscribe to. So someday I will catch up to it.
HBO Max?
Letterboxd isn't showing it.
Oh, mine is.
Interesting.
Are you logged in?
I am logged in.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's not showing me. My number 8 is from 2010. It's a movie called She's Out of My League. You guys ever seen this?
I own it on Blu-ray.
It's awesome. I love it.
It's great. It's fantastic.
So She's Out of My League. Jay Baruchel, Alice Eve, T.J. Miller. We'll ignore that. Kristen Ritter. And a bunch of other people. And you might recognize Jay Baruchel because he's kind of one of the, I don't know, Seth Rogen cast-offs, I guess.
One of the he's in the Judd Apatow movies.
Right. He's in that crew. And at this time, 11 years ago, he was kind of considered, they were toying with the idea of him being kind of a leading man for these types of, not necessarily teen comedies, but maybe early to mid 20s. Aged people comedies. And She's Out of My League is about a guy who doesn't have a whole lot of self-confidence, and this fairly attractive lady played by Alice Eve has an interest in him, and he doesn't understand why, but he tries to fumble his way into not screwing it up with her. And it's a funny movie that I think people just don't talk about, and I love it. And it's never come up on the podcast, I don't think, but I think I've seen it 3 or 4 times since it came out. And I also own it on Blu-ray, waiting for that sweet 4K of this one. But someday we'll get it. My number 8.
Yeah. Also a movie that I really like a lot. I think it is a really fun romantic comedy. For sure.
And if you don't like the Seth Rogen movies of the era because they're a little too raunchy.
Crass.
Yeah, they're a little too raunchy. She's Out of My League does have some of that, but it's not all of that. You know what I mean? It's like there's a better mix of dirty humor and straight romantic comedy style from 2010. And that's where I'll leave it.
Cool. All right, my number 7 is Romancing the Stone.
Yeah.
This is a Robert Zemeckis movie starring Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. Also has Danny DeVito in it. And I have never seen Romancing the Stone, and I want to know, should I watch it?
Yes.
I also have never seen it, and you guys hit another one that's on my watch list.
What are the odds?
Kyle.
Yes, this is a strong recommend.
Why?
Okay,
like, what's
why?
Without details? Why?
So it's an 80s adventure movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get a lot of adventure movies anymore. So it's kind of fun jumping back into that world.
Mm-hmm.
It is Indiana Jones-ish. Kind of has some threads to that, especially with the Michael Douglas character. It also, though, is the whole idea is it's sort of about a romance writer, Kathleen Turner, who goes down to South America for whatever reason and then starts living in a romance novel. It's not fantastical, but just sort of like everything that happens to her is something that would happen to one of her characters. So it's kind of fun just sort of watching that happen. Most importantly, this is the movie that gave Zemeckis the ability to make Back to the Future, because it proved that he could make a good movie that can make money. So he had Back to the Future as kind of like on the back burner. Like, this movie I want to make. No one was going for it. So he made Romancing the Stone. It was a success, both critically and financially. And the studios are like, oh, okay, what else you got? And he's like, well, I have this movie called Back to the Future, and rest is history.
Interesting. Have you seen the sequel? Jewel of the Nile, I think is what it's called. Something
I
like
have
that?
not. No.
Okay. Interesting. I have that one on Blu-ray, but don't have Romancing the Stone.
I have Romancing the Stone on Blu-ray
Really?
and Jewel of the Nile on DVD.
Zach, it's also a really fun Danny DeVito performance.
Okay.
Like, this is peak DeVito.
This is peak DeVito? So I haven't seen peak DeVito.
Actually, okay, maybe not peak, because this is early. This is
1984 was his peak?
No, I shouldn't say this is breakout DeVito. Let's change it.
Proto DeVito.
Breakout DeVito.
Yeah.
Breakout DeVito.
Yeah.
Everybody
peak
knows
DeVito's
his peak was Twins.
Oh, I thought Batman Returns was peak DeVito.
No. He was on the downslide by then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, breakout DeVito.
All right.
Okay.
My number 7 is actually 2 movies, because there are 13 movies on my top 10 list this week.
What? Okay.
And that's only because I was going through like some movies and I saw a common thread. So I had to lump 2 together. So the 2 I lumped together are Shipwrecked and White Fang. These are both movies from the early 90s. Shipwrecked from 1990, White Fang from 1991. Shipwrecked is it's kind of like Treasure Island. So it's about a boy, I think it's a Norwegian film, who becomes a cabin boy on a ship, and he slowly starts to realize, I think these might be pirates. With Gabriel Byrne playing the kind of the head pirate in this case. And there's buried treasure involved, and he gets marooned at an island. He wants to try and rescue the treasure. There's some I love movies where people are making traps with vines and logs that they found in the woods. And that happens in this movie. And it's a movie that was a childhood favorite of mine. I watched Shipwrecked all the time. I rented it all the time. I think it's a Disney movie, so it was on the Disney Channel. And I was kind of going through my list here, and I saw Shipwrecked, and I saw I logged it twice. I'm like, well, why did I log this twice? I know I watched it about 2 years ago. And my first review, when I logged it 3 years ago, was, I liked this movie as a kid. I hope it holds up. And then the review from when I watched it a year ago was, this holds up. I like it. So I was happy that I still enjoy Shipwreck. And that got me thinking about White Fang. White Fang's an Ethan Hawke movie where he's in the Yukon during the gold rush and kind of befriends a half dog, half wolf named White Fang, and they go on an adventure together. And that's another childhood classic that I loved. And I'm afraid to watch White Fang because I'm afraid it won't hold up. And that it'll ruin my nostalgia for that movie. Now, Shipwrecked proved me wrong, but will lightning strike twice is my question.
No.
I think it will.
You think it will? Okay.
I don't think it will. I think you should just stay away from that rewatch.
Stay away from White Fang? All right.
Yeah. I mean, what do you have to gain from it? Nothing. Just keep the
have
memory. Don't rewatch.
I have the gain being like an 8-year-old again and getting back into that headspace. And furthermore, if I watch it with my son and he likes it, boom, new connection.
What if you rewatch it with your son, you feel like an 8-year-old again, and he feels like a 37-year-old?
That sounds like a body switch movie.
You can watch Big next.
Yeah, that's right.
Kyle, the rewatch you talked about, we watched that movie together.
Was that Yes, that was together. I remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Apart. We were states apart, but we watched it concurrently and texted back and forth.
We FaceTimed or texted, yes.
Yeah.
And that was super fun.
It was.
Yeah.
So we should do that for White Fang.
I'm down.
Yeah.
All right. Zach, you and I will watch White Fang, and we will report back on the podcast.
Yeah.
You can be simultaneously disappointed. Sounds great. My number 7 is another movie from 2010. This one is Steak Land. I know neither of you have seen this.
No, I have seen this. I lost a bet with you and you had me watch it.
I made you watch this?
Yeah.
Wow, what a great friend I am. Steak Land is, I don't know how Zach feels about it, but I think it's awesome. Nobody ever talks about it, and they really should. Like, this should be in the conversation when people are talking about horror movies of the last decade or so, because I think Steak Land is unique in that it's a what's the word? It's movie. A zombie movie that's about vampires. Basically.
Sounds
right?
confused.
That's essentially what it is.
Hunter.
It's a zombie movie that's about vampires with a micro budget. When it comes to these types of movies, you're talking about I think it's like $600,000 or something like that to make it from beginning to end. That is so creatively made on that budget. And it started as like a bunch of short stories, like 10 short stories. And then they took those short stories and made it into a script. So it makes it feel kind of like a road movie where your main actors are like constantly going to a new location, meeting new people. And then an action sequence happens. And then they move to another location, they meet new people, and then an action sequence happens. And I'm making it sound formulaic, and it kind of is, but it works so well for me as a fan of genre movies, horror movies, of unique, inventive ways to present material that has been presented, admittedly, over and over and over again. When somebody can do something new within the boundaries of genre, I think it should be celebrated. And yet nobody talks about Steak Land. I don't know why. It's amazing. And Jim Mickle is awesome. Jim Mickle, the director, he almost exclusively trafficked in these micro budget movies earlier on in his career. He eventually went on to make Cold in July, which is not a genre movie. It's kind of like a noirish mystery movie that is awesome and stars the guy who starred in Dexter, Michael C. Hall. Michael C. Hall. Yeah. It's the first thing I saw Michael C. Hall in where I actually forgot that he was Dexter. And I watched Dexter a lot. So that's a hard thing to pull off for me. But yeah, it has Kelly McGillis in it, which is the actress from Top Gun and Witness. She's probably the only big name really in it, but it's great. If you're a fan of those types of movies, the chances are good you have not seen Steak Land, and you definitely should. I don't know when else I can bring it up, so I'm bringing it up here. My number 7.
Nice.
Zach.
Okay,
before you
my
move
number
on,
6.
You hate it?
Yeah.
You hated the experience of watching it, or what?
No, I didn't hate it.
Okay. Still not your favorite movie in the world, though.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Somehow those low budget films, they always find the budget for really elaborate makeup.
Sure.
Makeup must be cheap.
I think a lot of it's just like found materials and artistry.
I mean, it's a post-apocalyptic setting, so they basically just got a bunch of garbage and run down cars and stuff like that, and then they, set dressed through the woods a lot. And then the rest of the budget, they certainly didn't spend it on the cast. The rest of the budget was makeup effects. But they do an awesome sequence where they're like being invaded by like the military and all this stuff. You never once see a helicopter. They just put searchlights on the ground. And that's how they got away with it. It's just like they found inventive ways to have helicopter chases with no helicopters in it. So anyway, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is a film that is coming out next year that I am excited about.
Great.
It's 2022's Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Okay.
They're making a movie?
They are.
All right.
Yeah. So this was a show that I loved as a kid. I was obsessed with Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Huge fan of the show. Gadget was an early crush of mine. Anyways, I come to find out James is Googling Gadget from Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
I'm just searching Chippendale Rescue Rangers in general.
Come to find out they are making a movie of this. It's never had a movie before. It's directed by Akiva Schaffer and voice acted by Andy Samberg. So it's a Lonely Island, kind of
adjacent.
Adjacent, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been a big fan of the kind of stuff that they've made for decades, and I love that they're going to kind of be teamed up with Chippendale Rescue Rangers. I think they will add maybe a little, twist to it that wasn't there before. But instantly, this is something that I'm very curious about to learn more.
So if you search Chippendale Gadget, this is what they summarize the character with. This is what YouTube summarized the character with. Gadget Hack Wrench is the tritagonist from Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, she's definitely the tritagonist.
I don't even know what that means. What is a tritagonist?
I mean, I would argue she's a pentagonist because of Zipper and Monterey Jack. But it means there's three main protagonists: Chip, Dale, and Gadget.
The person, a tritagonist, the person who is third in importance. Wow, that's so judgy. After the protagonist, the deuteragonist in an ancient Greek drama.
Yeah, I mean, so Chip is the protagonist, Dale is the deuteragonist.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is news to you, James?
Deuteragonist.
No, and I think Dale is one of the most famous deuteragonists of all cinema.
That would be
I want these terms to
list.
enter the lexicon of this podcast. When we reference characters, we got to start using tritagonist, deuteragonist. Just confuse any new listener who bothers to click play when we throw these terms around.
Yeah.
Can we please make a top 10 deuteragonist list sometime?
Absolutely.
I would love that.
Yeah. Well, one of us do protagonist, one do deuteragonist, and one do tritagonist.
Okay.
All right.
I have a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Part one, what came first, Chippendale Rescue Rangers or the male dancers of similar names?
The male dancers of similar names.
Okay, figured. Part two, is there why? Are they the same?
Well, Chip and Dale came way before the dancers.
Okay.
I mean, that they were in cartoons from the 40s, right? Or 50s, maybe. But Chippendale Rescue Rangers, obviously, it comes from Chip and Dale. And then I think that is, and then somewhere in the middle, Chippendale Dancers came about.
This is definitely going to go to Disney Plus, right? There's not a chance they're releasing this in the movie theater.
I would imagine it's a Disney Plus thing. Although I don't know why they wouldn't release it in theater. I mean, they release Peter Rabbit to theaters.
Disney doesn't do that. That's some other company.
Sure.
I mean, Disney, I don't know. It just seems like it's too small an audience for a theater release. Not necessarily that they couldn't put it in theaters, just that to pay to promote it probably isn't worth it in the long run, just because of the size of the interest. I was kind of sold on the idea of this, even though I didn't really watch Rescue Rangers that much. But have you read the synopsis?
Of what?
Years after the Rescue Rangers TV series has ended, Chip and Dale must re-team to save a friend from video piracy. What?
Video piracy?
Video piracy? What does that even mean?
Well, so the TV show dealt with a lot of heavy issues. So, for instance, there was a cult episode where a bunch of mice and rats were in an orange soda cult where they would worship and drink orange soda.
Are you joking? Are you riffing right now? This was a thing.
I'm not. This was absolutely a thing.
Okay.
So I feel like that is in line with Chip and Dale's plot.
I mean, if it wasn't directed by one of the members of Lonely Island, that synopsis would have completely killed it for me. I'm hoping that they have something up their sleeve after reading that, because that
I think they do.
is not inspiring. Rescue Rangers, weren't they didn't they work for a television station or something? Or, no. What am I thinking?
They were
of?
a team of rescuing rodents.
Was there somebody that had a camera with them when they were doing this?
They weren't documenting things.
I'm confusing
Gadget
this with
had
something
gadgets
else.
every now and then.
Yeah, I'm confusing it with some other cartoon.
Okay, Kyle, Chippendales.
I googled it.
Thomas Chippendale was a furniture maker in the 1700s. There's a Chippendale-style chair, and the Chippendale dancers are named after the type of furniture that was in the club that the dancers danced in. And more than likely, the characters Chippendale were also named after the chairs.
The characters Chippendale are named after the designer of the chair.
Yeah.
So they have the same origin.
Yeah.
They went two completely different directions.
Divergent evolution.
Top 10 divergent evolutions. Go.
Whales and cows.
Oh, I was thinking movies. I was thinking like Armageddon and Deep Impact. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. My number 6, another top 100 movie of mine. I don't think it's ever been discussed on this podcast. Cool Hand Luke from 1967.
I talked about Cool Hand Luke like 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, we just talked about it.
We did?
No.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about it in as much as I said I've never seen it.
We talked about Pierre LeFou as being a movie that if it's your favorite movie, I instantly know you're cool. And I said it's kind of along the lines of Cool Hand Luke.
Okay, so it's been mentioned, but we haven't done a deep dive into it.
No.
We have not.
All right. So Cool Hand Luke's starring Paul Newman. He plays like a petty criminal. I think he gets arrested for knocking over parking meters. That's his crime. And he gets sent to jail. And the jail is like this labor camp where they have to build roads and dig ditches and things like that. And it is run by a pretty tough warden. And Paul Newman, playing Cool Hand Luke, being both cool in real life and as a character, will just not conform. And he is kind of at wits with the warden throughout the entirety of this movie. And he's not going to conform to prison life whatsoever. And it is a amazing Paul Newman performance, because Paul Newman is such a, I guess, natural actor is the best way to put it. Like, he can just say a line, and he can exude cool and calmness, and you believe it. And he's got a huge range to him, but just like he's got this charm to him, and he embodies his character so well. I was enthralled when I saw this movie for the first time, where I was really invested in the journey of Luke and what's going to happen to him as he's at this prison and as he's, at odds with this warden who obviously has the power, is at control, and is doing everything he can to break the Paul Newman character. This also has an incredibly famous line from it that's been featured in a Guns N' Roses song. James, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Do you know the song Civil War?
Yeah, I know the song.
And at the beginning, they have what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah, sure. That's from this movie?
That's from this movie.
Interesting.
And it's one of those moments where I was watching Cool Hand Luke, and I kind of knew it was from this movie, but I wasn't sure the context.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the quote, and I had to stop, and I probably watched the scene 4 times in a row, because it was something that I'd heard like in a Guns N' Roses song so many times. It was just so neat to actually see it in the movie and to experience it that way. And it is, if you don't watch the movie, at least Google that scene. I think you should watch the whole movie, but watch the failure to communicate scene, because it is a great line reading and a great scene in the movie.
He says that line like 5 times in that scene.
Failure to communicate?
Yeah, I remember him repeating it over and over.
Yeah, I know it comes up a couple times in the movie. I'm not sure if it's like multiple times in that one scene or just throughout the movie. That's kind of the
yeah,
phrase
I think
he
it
uses.
was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like a slogan.
Yep. So, high recommend.
Good choice. How many hard-boiled eggs do you think you could eat?
Oh, 20.
You think?
No, honestly, probably 7.
Yeah, 7's a good number.
I think
James?
after 7.
How many hard-boiled eggs can I eat?
Yeah.
3.
No, come on.
Oh, your stomach's bigger
You
than
mean
that.
you mean eat until I vomit, or that I'd like to eat?
Not that you would like. No, I'm not asking your preference. Like, if it came down to it, you had to prove something to someone.
What am I proving by eating hard-boiled eggs?
There's a bet, and you could win $1,000 if you put down the most hard-boiled eggs.
50.
No,
You
come
cannot
on,
put down 50
James.
hard-boiled eggs.
Hard-boiled?
Ridiculous.
Those aren't hard. Like raw, I couldn't do 50, but I could do
No,
50.
Chase, you're insane.
No, you would vomit way before 50.
How do you know?
Picture
You've never seen me eat
eggs.
50.
Hold 50 eggs in a sack,
Yeah.
and then picture that in your belly.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't look like that when it was in my belly. I'd chew it and swallow it and stuff.
But you understand that, like, food you chew, it still has matter, right? It doesn't, like...
Do I have to eat the shells too, or just the...
No
Inside.
No, just
shells.
the egg.
Okay. Yeah, 50.
Like, if you eat
No.
a pound of steak, you now have a pound of steak in your belly.
50 easy.
James, that's over 4 cartons of eggs.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Cool
James,
Hand James.
do you know the cool hand James? Do you know the trope of, like, the warden wearing the mirrored sunglasses?
Mm-hmm.
That's from this movie.
You know, I think I've said recently that I've never seen Cool Hand Luke. I just watched the trailer silently, and I don't recognize anything about the look of the movie or, you know, that type of stuff. And yet on Letterboxd, I have it marked watched, 3.5 stars.
Oh, you're a liar then.
But this is like, there's no date attached to it. So this is according to my memory, evidently, because everything since I've been using Letterboxd, you know, if I've watched it after I started using Letterboxd, there's always a date attached to it. So it's possible I've seen it and I just don't recognize any of it, or it's possible I've not seen it and I mismarked it or mistook it for something else that I've seen, possibly. But I'll watch it. If anything, just to be considered cool in Zach's eyes.
I mean, it's
only
a
cool if you like it.
If I like it. Yeah.
It's like a cool guy movie.
It's definitely a cool guy movie.
Can I tell you something my kids do?
Yes.
Is anytime someone puts on sunglasses, my daughter will say, "Cool guy."
That's awesome.
I think that's really funny.
My number 6 is not a movie, but it is movie related. Zach, you're the one that started this trend of breaking the rules. So Kyle and I
didn't break any rules.
Kyle and I are just following your lead on this podcast.
I didn't. What rule did I break?
You started talking about TV shows and stuff like that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
Unspoken rules.
Mine
Zach.
have all been movies. Sound of Music, Romancing the Stone, You've Got Mail, Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
In this episode, but in the past, you break the rules when it comes to lists. So you can't roll your eyes at us when we do it.
I widen the margins.
You put YouTube series on your list.
It's not a YouTube series. It airs on TV. It just also plays on YouTube.
I might put more to say.
Where-
You put YouTube series on the list.
No, it plays on TV. James watched a movie on YouTube in this list. Same deal.
Right, but it wasn't a YouTube movie. It's just
That's
a
what I'm
movie
saying.
that happened to play through YouTube.
Yeah. No, this played on TV on Bronx TV.
All right. My number 6, which is not a movie, is a podcast called Dead Eyes. Have you guys ever heard of this?
A podcast.
Have you heard of the podcast Dead Eyes?
No.
I can't say I have.
I
have not.
I am
Is this just
I'm obsessed.
My number 5 is a drawing of a clown.
I'm obsessed with this podcast, and I've
my number 4 is a dinner I had tonight. It was so good.
in the past 2 weeks, I listened to
My number 3 is the element uranium.
I listened to both seasons of Dead Eyes. It's the main host is this guy named Connor Radcliffe. He's a comedian who once wanted to be an actor. He now acts, but like in comedies, and he's a UCB guy. He's about our age, maybe a little older than you guys, probably closer to me. But his entire podcast is about when he was a young actor at the age of 24. He auditioned for Band of Brothers, the miniseries produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg that came out in 2001. And he had other acting jobs, but this was the first one where he was like, oh, I'm in a legitimate thing. Like I just got cast in a bit part with like 5 lines on this ginormous HBO TV show. And the episode I'm going to be in is not only produced by Tom Hanks, it's the one out of the 8 episodes that he's directing. So like Tom Hanks is going to direct me. He's super excited, right? So now it's the day before he's supposed to go film his part on Band of Brothers, and he gets a phone call from his agent that he needs to get on a train. He was living in the UK at the time. Get on a train to London, and Tom Hanks wants to see him because he thinks that he's not right for the part because he has dead eyes. Right? Which is not something you would say to an actor because it's not something you can fix, right? You can't bug your eyes out and make them more alive if somebody thinks you have dead eyes, right? So now he has to take this hours-long train ride into London and sit nervously, and then they call him in and he re-auditions for a part he already had and had already been paid for. And he doesn't get it. They drop him and they hire somebody else for the role. And so he goes for the next 20 years. He basically quit acting because of that incident. He goes for the next 20 years, having everybody around him tell him about how great Tom Hanks is and how he's the nicest guy in Hollywood. And he's also the guy that fired him because he has dead eyes. And in his mind, he doesn't necessarily say this, but it's implied in the podcast, kind of ruined his acting career.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did Tom Hanks tell anybody to tell him specifically that he had dead eyes? No. Like, that never should have gotten to him. And like the guy on the podcast, Connor Radcliffe, constantly reiterates that like Tom Hanks, if he actually said this, never expected it to get to him. And yet it did, type of thing. So the podcast itself is an exploration of actors, specifically, mostly actors, and their horror stories and how much it affects them to be rejected. And I found the podcast to be great. And there's tons of great people that guest on it as he weaves his way through finding the truth behind what happened to him that day and why he lost the job on Band of Brothers. Like Judd Apatow's on it, Seth Rogen. He finds the guy that actually got the role. He talks to him. He talks to other actors from Band of Brothers who he would have acted with. He talks to, what's his name? Ant-Man.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd is on the podcast. Just tons of people. Very well produced, NPR style. And it's great. And it's kind of movie related. Therefore, I wanted to talk about it.
Miniseries related.
Well, I mean, it's Tom Hanks. He's movie related.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nice.
Have you guys heard about the Band of Brothers podcast that just came out?
No.
There is it's an official fan podcast, I guess is the way you put it. Where
what does that mean?
So I don't know the guy. I can't think of the guy who's the host. He's a fan of the show,
mm-hmm.
who's working with HBO to do a podcast per episode. And he's interviewing people. Like he interviewed Tom Hanks for the first one. He's interviewing actors and directors and producers from the show. But each episode focuses on a specific episode of Band of Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only going to be probably like 10, 11 episodes long.
Interesting.
But it's cool.
Kind of like they did with, what was that show where it was about the nuclear meltdown? Chernobyl.
Oh, it's kind of like the Chernobyl thing. Let's talk about the episode.
Right.
Yep.
interesting.
But this has like the 20 years hindsight thing and people kind of looking back upon it.
I mean, if I was an owner of content, if I was one of these streaming services and I was trying to get people to explore my back catalog, that is easily the cheapest way to get people looped back into it. I don't know why they're not all doing that. Just kind of like after shows, episode by episode, because there's definitely an appetite for it on some level. And I hate to end this one on not even talking about a movie, but that is the end of part 1 of the surprise 2-part list. Our top 10 movies we want to talk about. We had obviously a lot of pent up things we needed to talk about related to those 5 movies each. Right? I mean,
this is breaking news right here.
It's breaking news. I wonder right now. I'm wondering, because I do this occasionally with podcasts that I know like they're going through a process. I'll like look to see how much time is left to try to gauge like, you know, how much longer I have to go. People have to be wondering how this is going to end in the next 5 minutes. I like, what if we just read them off and have no discussion whatsoever? No,
we're having so much fun with it. We're going to do a part 2.
We're definitely going to
5 through 1.
We're definitely going to do a part 2. Next week, catch the thrilling conclusion of our top 10 movies we want to talk about. And if you have a movie you want to talk about, the best way to let us know about that is to send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, or just, you know, mention a movie you want to talk about, and then we'll talk about it. And it'll be just like you talked about it, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
We'll use some of the same words you would have said.
Right. Exactly. You can also watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube. You can follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Find out what Kyle's son thinks about his movie collection. I'm guessing big thumbs down, but we'll see. Also, Apple Podcast reviews, leave them. And I think that's it. I think we covered everything. Oh, except for social media. Follow us on the socials, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram @Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account @YoJRB.
You follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd @Shaubin.
You can find me on Letterboxd @PeterSKB.
And we'll see you guys next week for the back half of this week's list. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.